Hey everybody, Dave here. Hope you're having an awesome day. So, I was scrolling through Instagram, I'm just scrolling, and I came across an ad for an arcade machine, and it's one of those little cheesy ones. It's like 4 foot tall. They're fun, but as I was going, I thought, hey, that might be a really fun build to make a miniature arcade machine for one of my action figures. And I just saw the Ninja Turtle movie, and it was so much fun. So I thought, what about like an old school Ninja Turtle arcade video game? So come on, let's do it. And so the first thing I had to do was some research because I needed to see the shape of the overall arcade machine. And then once I got that, I kind of started working and drawing and building it in Illustrator. And then I took my little Ninja Turtle here, and it was about 4 inches tall. That's about how big I made it. And I'm just taking the Ninja Turtle and kind of comparing size, and it feels like way too small. So I actually scaled it up in Illustrator, and I think that feels a lot nicer. Although this turtle, he doesn't really articulate very well, so I think I'm going to use this turtle, and I feel like this will just make it feel a little bit more dynamic. So in order to build this, I'm going to use this polystyrene. It's 1.5 millimeter. And the thickness of it is really nice because arcades are normally built with a thick plywood or maybe a particle board. So I think this will give that idea. Now, remember when I built everything in Illustrator, this kind of comes to my advantage because I have my brother's scan and cut, and I can score the plastic, the polystyrene. I don't have to cut all the way through because with polystyrene, if you score it, you can just bend and snap and the pieces will come right off. Now, there was a little bit of cleanup work, but nothing too major. I got some sanding tools and just kind of sanded things down. I'm going to use a Tamiya thin set, and what this does is it actually fuses the polystyrene together. It melts it, and they just fuse right together, and you can see it holds up really nice. Sanding a little bit of an edge on this, that will allow me to fit these two pieces together a lot nicer. And I'm using my CA glue, and I'm doing a pretty heavy bead inside. And what I'm doing is I want to adhere this all together and make it a stronger bond. And so I'm using some baking soda to do that, and it actually makes a really nice little weld. Gluing the front piece on here, and I'm kind of thinking through the process of how I want to put this together. This is the game control console. I ran out of polystyrene, so I thought I'll just piece these two together and then I can sand it all down. And I glued this all together, and I was going to do a little dry fit, and I realized I put it all together upside down. So I need to go ahead and break that off, and I'm going to rebuild this. That's okay because it was a little bit easier to sand this way, but the more I sanded and the more I looked at it, I thought, I don't really like that. So I realized I have some thinner polystyrene, and it's just on the bottom, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I actually need to build a wall in the back as well to close this all in. So that actually came together pretty well, and I'm liking how this is feeling. Now I want to do the same thing. I'm going to just build up some beads of glue, use the baking soda, and that just helps strengthen everything. When you have a couple of little pieces hanging off, you can just take some model snips and just cut those right off. Now I got to figure out some clear glass for the monitor and the top here. And I ended up having this orange juice bottle, so I think this will work quite nicely. There's a nice clean piece of plastic. Well, clean is I use that term loosely because there is all this goo on here. So I'll use some Goo Gone, smear that around, let it sit for a minute or two. And this is just like way too cool. Like I used a piece of scrap polystyrene and it just globbed off. Look at that. Oh, that's so nice. Okay, wipe that thing down. That is a really nice clean piece of plastic. I'll cut out a good chunk of that, and I'll use that to make my screen monitor. So I'm really liking how that feels. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it across the top there and across the bottom. And I got to figure out what I'm going to do for this top piece here. It's not quite right, so I'm not sure what to do with that, so I'll come back to that later. Just putting a little bead of glue here. That's my CA. I use BSI Instacure, and I use the medium gap fill. It's my favorite. I'm doing a little bit of wet sanding just to get any of the scratches out. And for the coin receivers, I cut these pieces, but they're just way too big. So I had that thinner polystyrene. I thought, hey, you know what? It's lower profile, so I think I'm going to use that. And so what I did was I drew that in Illustrator and cut it out, and here I'm just kind of gluing that together. When you're putting these down, the CA glue gives you a little bit of time to adjust things, so I like to just take my fingernail and just kind of bump it. I just eyeball this, and I think that looks pretty good. Did the same for the bottom there. And I cut out some other little pieces. Now my cutter didn't really cut them super great, so they're not like perfect little circles, but I think for what I'm doing in the scale, I think it's going to work okay. I could have maybe taken a piece of polystyrene and cut like a polystyrene rod and cut that, but that's all right. Same thing here with these little rectangles. They didn't cut out super perfect. I probably could have just cut a piece myself, but this is what I ended up with. So I went to Photoshop and I actually grabbed about 4 or 5 different images and pieced this all together. I rebuilt some of the corners. I took the logo, flipped it on the other side, re-photoshopped all that. So a little bit of graphic design work here, but nothing too heavy. And here's a screen. I did spray a matte on the back. I don't know why. I thought it might be kind of cool to like dull it down a little bit, but I ended up recutting that because I wanted a nice clear piece. Now I have this graphic here, and what I'm doing is I'm just doing a little bead of glue at the top. It's okay because it's going to go up underneath so you won't notice. And then I'm taking a Sharpie marker and just kind of cleaning up that white edge. So I'm hitting it with black, and that worked out pretty nice for me. You got to be careful because some papers do bleed a little bit more. But so here's kind of the final fit. I think I need to figure out the glass here, but I think I'm going to paint this thing black. And while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my decals here. And this is just on photogloss paper, but I spray mounted it. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick it on to the black painted arcade game. So this part, just take your time, look at it carefully, line it up, and this is looking really cool. I'm like really excited about this. Remember that little game screen? Kind of hated it, so I tore that out and I did a different opening screen. And then this thing here, I have nothing to glue it onto, so I thought, oh, what if I did like a little piece of this square polystyrene? And now that'll give me a nice backer to glue that onto. Just laying on the game console. I made these 4 little black dots because I'm going to do something fun there towards the end. Painting those little polystyrene rods black just so they kind of hide and blend in a little bit more. Now, I found these pins at Walmart and I cut it in half, but you can see there's a full-length pin. And I already poked some little holes through there, and watch this. Oh, this is so great. And it turned out the pins had a blue, a yellow, a purple, and it didn't have a red, so I had to paint up the red one. But this looks so great. And there was 2 size pins. I ended up using the smaller pin. Just painting out some of the little details here, the coin slots, and let's say game on. Okay, this turned out so fun, and I am so excited to have this as part of my collection. And I know right off the bat, some of you are going to say, you need to have LEDs in there. It'll be way cooler. I know. I just ran out of time. I've got so many projects going on right now, and I was just lucky to get this done. But I think it turned out really cool, and I cannot wait to set it up with my action figures. And it's awesome. I love it. Yeah, this is going in my personal collection. So, hey, let's do some turnaround shots of this thing. And as always, it's a great day to be a toy nerd. Have a great one.